Go to Economics chapter 34.
Oh, yeah.
We go on population. They said the size of a country's population can grow as a result of the natural increase or net immigration. So when we talk about natural increase, we're talking about true birth. And net immigration, that means the difference between the number of people coming in and going out of a country. I think you get the point there. Yeah, so they say a natural increase occurs when the birth rate exceeds the death rate. For example, the birth rate in Iran in 2016 was 15.6 per 1,000, and the death rate was 4.6 per 1,000, giving a natural rate of increase of 11 per 1,000 or 1.1%.
That's not immigration.
That's net immigration. So basically, we have the population can increase either through natural cause, which is birth rate, or through net immigration. Net immigration. Okay. So is that the death rate influenced by nutrition, housing conditions, medical care, lifestyle, working conditions, involvement or non-involvement in military action. So these are the factors that influence the death rate. Why do people die? So people die based on nutrition, based on housing conditions, medical health care, their lifestyles, working conditions.
Let's give the birth rate. We said the death rate. Birth rate.
Ooh, sorry about that.
Yeah, we can do this and then.
Okay.
So
let me just go back to the birth rate. So they said the birth rate, the influences of the birth rate are the average age of the population, the number of women in the population, and the women's fertility rate. That is the average number of children per woman. So for the factors that influence the birth rate, we're talking about the population itself, the number of women in that population. Because the more women in the population, the more tendency of giving birth to more. And aside that, the fertility rate, how many women have the ability to give birth or so when we talk about population, basically population is about the rate of growth in terms of people that stays or that exist in a country or in a given economy or in a given country. So this thing is influenced by the birth rate and the net immigration. When we talk about birth rate, we're talking about the number of people that are born per thousand in that population. And when we talk about the net immigration rate, we're talking about the difference between the numbers of people going out, the numbers of citizens going out of the country, and numbers of foreigners coming in to that country. So these are the factors that determine the population of the country. Now, we go to each one, which is the first one, which is natural, which is the birth rate. So they said, yeah, the birth rate is influenced by the average age of the population. That means the average age of the population, we're talking about how young the population is or how old the population is. The second thing is the number of women in the population. So the more the women we have in the population, the tendency there is for a lot of birth in that population. But when it comes to talking about the numbers of women in the population, we have to think about the number of fertility, the rate of fertility in women. So that means the tendency of women being able to bear a child. So if a large number of people or women in that population are fertile, that means they will be able to give birth to a lot of children. So that increases the population. I think birth rate is clear.
Yes.
Then go to the death rate. For the death rate, we're talking about the number of deaths per 1,000 in a given country.
Yes.
So yeah, what are the factors that influence the death rate? Number one, we're talking about nutrition. How well they fed. Is the population able to take balanced diet? Or are they suffering from malnutrition? If they are suffering from malnutrition, it could lead to death. So that means with death, the population will start going down. So one of the factors that influence the death rate is nutrition. That if they are malnutrited, they have malnutrition. That means they are not taking the balanced diet. Two, the housing conditions. If the population are short of houses, then where do they stay? So definitely they will have issues regarding where to sleep, and these things could lead to death. The third point is medical care. So how is the population able to treat or to take care of its medical issues, the health sector? If the health sector is deteriorating, it will lead to death, and a lot of people will die in the country. They will talk about lifestyles. How are they living? How do they live? Are they careless about their livelihood or not? Like, how do they? What kind of things are they exposed to? Do you get it? Maybe do you get understand what I'm saying here? What type of things do they get exposed to? Are they treating life? Are they, are they conscious of what they do, how they do it or not? This also influences the death rate. Then the working conditions. Do they engage in work that are so life risky, which is risky to life or not? Do they put in place health and safety precautions or not? So this could also influence the death rate. Then we talk about involvement and non-involvement in military action. Military action, we're talking about war here. So if large number of people in the country are involved in military action, it could increase the death rate. So these are the factors that influence the death rate. I think that is clear.
Yes.
Then we go to net immigration, which occurs when more people come into the country to live. That's the immigrants. Than people who leave it to live elsewhere. That's the emigrants. So if the number of immigrants are more than the numbers of emigrants, then the population would increase. I think it's clear. Is it clear, please? Why? We go to the reasons for different rates of population. So the reasons for different rates of population growth. They said the birth rate is likely to be high when there is a young average aged population in which women marry young. Infant mortality rate is high. Women are not well educated. Most women do not work, and it is cheap to bring up children. So here they're talking about differences in growth rates. If the average age of the population is young, then there's tendency to have high birth rate. Aside that, if here they talk about infant mortality rate. What causes infant mortality rate? This is when women are not educated, so they are not engaged, they are not employed. So they are just home. Their work is to be home. So it becomes cheaper for them to give birth because they are not engaged, they are not, they are not occupied, they are not busy. So that could increase the birth rate. Other factors leading to high birth rate are the lack of disapproval of family planning, government cash incentives to have children, but a lack of government help to care for the sick and elderly. So other reasons why we could have high birth rate based on what they said here is if the population does not agree on family planning, so they don't want family plan, so everybody could give birth to numbers of children they want, or government gives our children benefits, like maybe the government gives children financial help based on the numbers of children that they have, family financial help based on the number of children they have. That would encourage them to give birth to more children. I think that is clear. And if government doesn't take care of the sick or the elderly one, so they know the elderly ones will die as soon as possible, then they need to replace them. So they keep giving birth to replace those ones that have tendency to die. So these are the reasons why there's an increase in the birth rate. I think that is clear.
Yes.
Is it clear, please? Yes. Then they said, in contrast, in a country where it is expensive to have children because there is a legal requirement to send children to school for a number of years and an expectation that some of them will go on to higher education and well-paid jobs are open to women, the birth rate is likely to be low. If the government does provide state pensions, sickness and disability benefits, families may not feel that they have to have a large family in order to support them. So here it's saying the birth rate can reduce here if it's difficult to raise children, especially if it is expensive to give them better education. And it is legal, like it is law, or it is legal to give children, continuous education in that country. So you just feel like, oh, it becomes a crime if we have the children and we can't educate them. So you'll be discouraged to give birth to more children. That's the point I'm making there. I think it's clear. Yes. And they said, if women have well-paid jobs, so because women have well-paid jobs, they don't want to stay at home. So as a result of that, they want to work too, because there's incentive for them to work. So they will be busy. So they may not have that, they might not put into mind getting married or giving birth.
So the government would be like, they need to employ women.
what I'm saying is, we are talking about reasons why the birth rate could reduce. The first point is if it is expensive to give children education and it is legal to give children education. The second point here they're making is that if women have well-paid jobs, that means women can get higher paid salary, they can get salaries that are high. So they will want to work. They don't want to get married as soon as now. That's the point there. Do you understand the point? Okay. A country in which people have healthy diet, enjoy good housing facilities and access to high quality medical care, do not smoke or consume excess alcohol, exercise regularly, enjoy good working conditions, and country is at peace with other countries is likely to have a relatively low death rate. So we talked about it already, that factors that could influence death rate: malnutrition, involvement in war and crime, and yeah. So if there's a country that these things have low rates, that they have better healthcare facility, they have better nutrition, government is taking care of them, they don't take much alcohol, they exercise regularly, their lifestyle will be good. So as a result of that, there's tendency to have low death rate in such country. I think that is clear. The rate and pattern of net migration is influenced by relative living standards at home and abroad, persecution of particular groups, and extent of control on the movement of people. If living standards abroad are better or perceived to be better, there's persecution at home and no restriction to immigrate, no restriction to immigration by other countries. Some people are likely to immigrate. Most migrants tend to be single people of working age. Yeah, we're talking about the pattern of net migration here. This is based on the living standards at home and abroad. If the living standard at home is poor, people will move away from home when they perceive that living abroad gives them a better life that they dream of. So they move abroad. That is the point I'm making here. Is it clear?
Yes.
And the last thing they talked about is, like, most of the time, people that migrate are people that are still single or within their working age. Those are the kind of people that move out of the country.
Yes.
Okay. In deciding what is happening to a country's population size, the relationship between the birth rate, the death rate, and the net migration have to be considered. A fall in the death rate, for example, will not necessarily lead to an increase in population if it is offset by a fall in the birth rate and or a net emigration. Latvia population, for example, is declining because its birth rate has fallen at a greater rate than its death rate, and it's currently experiencing net emigration. So what they are saying here is that when you are deciding the population size in relationship to the birth rate and death rate or net migration, you have to put this condition the three, not just one. So they said a fall in death rate does not mean that the birth rate is increasing or there's going to be an increase in the population size. If the death rate is falling in relation to the if the death rate is falling in relation to the death rate, so there won't be increase in population. You get the point here? Death rate is falling and birth rate is falling at the same time. So there won't be an increase in the population. Or if the death rate is falling and the number of people leaving the country also is increasing, so it will still reduce the population. So put it into consideration. Don't think when the death rate is falling, the population will increase. No, you have to check on the statistic of the migration, the net immigration, and you have to check the statistic of the birth rate.
That's a good question. What's the difference between net immigration and immigration?
Immigration is the movement of people out of a country.
Out of the country.
Yes.
Migration.
Emigration.
And migration. There's two.
Emigration is the number of people coming into the country.
Immigration.
Immigration is the number of people going out of the country. Out is immigration. Out of a country is emigration. Into a country is immigration.
What about net immigration? Immigration.
Net immigration is the difference between the number of people going out and coming in.
Immigration.
Net immigration. Net migration.
Migration. What's that?
The difference between people going out and coming in. So when you base it on people going out, that is net immigration. When you base it on the difference between in and out is net migration.
In and out is migration. Out and in is migration.
Migration.
Migration. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll go down. The effects of change in the size and structure of population. Are you there? Are you there? Okay. We said the gender distribution of population of a population indicates the number of males compared to a number of females. So that's what we call gender distribution, the rate of women, men to women. In most countries, more boys are born than girls. However, in a number of countries, female outnumbers males. This is largely due to women on the average living longer than males and the high male infant mortality rates. In some countries, such as the United Arab Emirates and China, there are more males in the population than females. This is because some families in China may favor males, while in the UAE, more males than females from other countries come to work and live in that country. So yeah, here they're talking about this is why there are differences in the population size. So making an example of China, which gives more priority to having male children than female, and United Arab Emirates having more men working than women immigrating into the country.
In China, they make it illegal to get like one more than one kid.
Yeah, because based on population.
Yes, because the population is increasing.
Yeah. So the age distribution is the division of the population into different age groups. So we've talked about the first one we talked about is gender distribution, which is the rate between the distribution of men to women in the country. Now we're going to the age distribution, which talked about differences in ages within the population. So they said, in broad terms, the categories are popular: people under 16, those between 16 to 64, and those 65. Those over 65. So it is categorized as 0 to 16, 16 to 64, 65 and above. I think that is clear.
Yes.
So diagrams in the form of a bar chart refers to what we call the population pyramid. It's just like a bar chart which talks about the population. So it shows a more detailed breakdown of the different age groups. The traditional view of the population pyramid of a country with relatively low development is a pyramid shape such as that shown. Yeah, this is what we call the pyramid, population pyramid. This is how it looks like. So it's different age group. We have from 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19. The rest. Okay. So it says such a pyramid reflects a high birth rate and a high death rate. It has a large proportion of young people in its population, with only a small percentage of people reaching older age groups. Of course, not all countries with relatively low development fit this pattern of population structure. So the pyramid just basically talked about the rate of birth in the country, and the number of middle age, the number of younger ones, and the number of old ones in the country. That is what the pyramid talks about. So the traditional view, they said the traditional view of the population pyramid of a country with high development is reflected below. So this is based on lower birth rate and death rate, with more people surviving till they enter old age. So traditionally, that means in the modern era, in the old era, people live longer based on the fact that there's no pollution like we have now. People are not exposed to things that are health deteriorating. They feed on natural things, unlike now. So that's what they are trying to say there. So we go to the age structure of population influences, how it influences dependency ratio. So how do we measure dependency ratio? Are you there?
Yes, sir.
So to measure the dependency ratio, it is the number of dependent groups divided by the number of the labor force multiplied by 100. The number of labor force. Do you understand? The number of people working. That means the number of people that are depending on the number of dependent groups. The number of people that are the amount of people that are in the category of dependency.
From 16 to 65. It's like the number.
No, it's not from 16 to 65. Within 16 to 65, there's a middle age that are working.
Oh, yeah.
So we're talking about dependency rates. That means the number of people that are dependent divided by the number of the labor force multiplied by 100.
Yes, it's a good thing.
Dependent age group. That means from 0 to 14, from 65 to it depends on the country.
Yes, yes.
So if the dependency rate age in the country is from 0 to 15, so the total number of those within that 0 to 15, and it's 65 to the number of people within that 65 above, you add them together, divided by the number of workers in that country, multiplied by 100.
So it's not from 16 to 65. It's from 0 to 15 to 65 above. Added together, divided by the labor force times.
Yes. Is it clear?
Yes.
So we have the optimum population. They said the term optimum population refers to the number of people which, when combined with the other resources of land, capital, and existing technical knowledge, gives the maximum output of goods and services per head of the population. We have overpopulation, we have underpopulation, and we have optimum population. For optimum, it means that the available resources is enough for the population. That is optimal.
So it matches.
So look how they said this refers to the number of people which, when combined with other resources of land, other factors of production, give the maximum output of goods and services per head of the population.
So it matches. That's right.
Yeah. So that means the number of people available, the number of the population matches the resources available in that country.
It's like I don't know. I was going to say consumer goods and capital goods.
No.
That's PVC.
No.
Yeah.
So here we're talking about the population to the resources. So if the population to the resources are equal, it's optimal. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. The concept is not based just on the number of people in a country or per square kilometer. The balance between population and resources is of crucial importance. A country with a large geographical area and a small population may still be considered as overpopulated if there is a shortage of land, capital, and technical knowledge relatively to the number of workers. So a country might have lower population, but because it does not have resources that are enough for that small amount of population, it is still considered as overpopulated. So overpopulation means that the resources available are not enough for the population.
Yes.
That is overpopulation. Is it clear?
Yes. For example, Libya, that has a large land but a small population. But I don't know about the resources.
Libya will not be considered as overpopulated, no.
It's not over.
It is under.
Yeah. Because there's more resources, more population. Yeah.
So that is that. Then they said, in such a case, a government may seek to move towards its optimum population either by introducing measures to reduce its population size or by seeking to increase investment. So because here, the resources available are not enough. So government could find policies, come up with policies to increase their productivity, their investment, so that they can reach the optimum level. Or reduce, or start coming up with policies to discourage policies that will reduce the birth rate. Is it clear?
Yes.
So a country is said to be underpopulated if it does not have enough of human resources to make the best use of its resources. In such a case, its government may encourage immigration, which is illustrated. So for underpopulation, the resources are available and more than the available human resources and the available people, the population. The resources are more than the population. That is underpopulation. I think it's clear.
Yes.
So this is how it looks like. So output per head is high. When the output per head is higher than the number of people, that is underpopulation. If the output per head is equal to the number of people, that is optimum population. If the output per head is lesser than the number of people, over. Is it clear?
Yes.
So the concept of optimum population, in practice, it is difficult to determine a country's optimum population and size of actual population relative to it. This is in part because the quantity and quality of resources are changing all the time. Resources changes over time. So it might be difficult for us to understand if a country is operating at its optimum or not. Sometimes it might be high, it might be low. So we go. The effect of an increase in population. Are you there?
Yes.
Continue. We'll go to the effect of an increase in population. They said the consequences of a growth in a country's population depends on its cost, size of population relative to optimal population, and the rate of population growth. Possibly benefits of an increasing population are listed below. So an increase in population might not be vital, might not be fatal, sorry. It might not affect some countries. It might affect other countries. It depends on the size of the population and the level at which they get to the optimum population. Like a country that is witnessing underpopulation. So increasing population will not affect them. But the country is increasing in population. But increasing in population would only make them to reach their optimum. which is good. But a country that is already having a problem of overpopulation, or that is in optimal population, then increasing population there might be a problem. That is the point they are making there.
Yes.
So let's see, they said, what are the benefits of increasing population? So we check first the benefit. If the population is below the optimum size, the country will be able to make better use of its resources. So if the population is still below the optimum size, increasing population there is good because it will make the country to be able to use all its resources. Unemployed resources will be fully employed.
There'll be a surplus.
Yeah, there are surplus already. That's why because they are still below the optimum. So that means unused resources. Okay. They said the sizes of market will increase. This should enable firms to take greater advantage of economies of scale. So the size of the market also will be able to increase, and that allows them to produce more, which means they can involve themselves in large-scale production. So as they are able to engage themselves in large-scale production, that will give them the benefit of using economies of scale or exploring economies of scale. The third point, there will be an increase in factor mobility. If the rise has resulted from an increase in the birth rate or immigration, expanding industries can recruit new workers to the labor force. These people are likely to be familiar with new ideas and methods. If this is the case, firms' training costs will be reduced. So here they're talking about increase in factor mobility, which means large numbers of people are working now, like people start working. So a lot of people are coming into the country and the birth rate is also increasing. So this means that people will be engaged. And as a result of that, firms might not need to spend so much on training because a lot of people want to get themselves engaged. A lot of people want to get themselves, wants to make themselves available for jobs. So they can train themselves, they can educate themselves. Do you get the point I'm making here? So that would reduce the amount of money firms have to spend on training costs because there are large pool of numbers of people wanting to work. The fourth point, extra demand will be generated. This is likely to stimulate investment and this may lead to the introduction of new technology. So, because the population is increasing, demand in the economy would increase. And firms might think of meeting up, respond to this demand. In the course of thinking about responding to this demand, they might want to introduce new technology to make things become faster so that it can quickly meet up with the demand of customers. The last point, a rise in the labor force. Now, due to net immigration and in the future caused by a rise in the birth rate, net immigration will bring in more workers. More children being born will increase the dependency ratio in the short term, but in the long term will result in more workers. So if there's a rise in the labor force through net immigration, it means large numbers of people are coming into the country. That would increase the labor force. Though the dependency ratio might increase because a lot of new children will be born, but it will be in the short run, in the short term, because in the long run they will be able to grow up and add up to the economy or to the productivity of the country.
Yes.
So these are the advantages or benefits of increasing population. I think they are clear. Now, despite the possible advantages of an increasing population, there are numbers of reasons for a government to be concerned about population growth. This includes what are the problems about or consequences, negative consequences of population growth. One, concerns about farming. If a country is currently overpopulated and agricultural productivity is low, there's a risk that the country may not be able to feed more dependents. So farming, people would start suffering for feeding because the population is over. So, and if the population is increasing at a higher rate than the agricultural rate, so there's not going to be enough food for people to eat. That is farming. Starvation, which is not good for the economy. Two, restrictions on the improvement in living standards. Resources which could have been used to improve living standards may have to be devoted to the provision of goods and services for the extra number of dependents in the population. There may be, for example, provision for more healthcare facilities, but healthcare services by head before. So when the population starts increasing, resources have to be devoted to meet up with providing goods and services for the increasing population. Do you get it?
Mm.
Instead of trying to use resources to better the life of the small population, they won't think about bettering the life anymore. They will think about meeting up with the demand of those population, those ones that are newly increasing. Government will start thinking about the increasing population than giving a better lifestyle or good lifestyle to the existing population. The population starts increasing. So instead of using the resources to make the life better, they will start thinking about how to ensure that that increase, there's provision for those that there's provision for the increase in terms of devoting resources for goods and services to meet with the increasing population.
But they're nothing to do. I mean, they're increasing population, but not.
This is what I'm saying. If the population is 1,000,
Yes.
and with the resources we have are below the above the 1,000,
Yes.
so that means we can make it better. So that means the living standards of those 1,000 people can be better. But if the population increases to 1,500, we won't think about making your life better anymore. We start thinking about making goods and services available for the increased 500 people.
Yes, yes.
So the resources will be devoted on the increasing population rather than the whole population, the existing one.
Yes, yes.
You get the point? If, for example, the school, let's say your school has 5 classes. If your school has 5 classes for grade 11 business department,
Yeah.
so maybe in your class you have 10 students each. So it is 10. And maybe you have 40 students for 5 classes.
Yes.
So you could have 40 students for 5 classes. You could have 8, right, in the class.
8 plus, yeah.
That looks good.
Mhm.
But now you have additional 20 students. Will you still maintain 8 classes? Now you have additional 20 students to the 40, making 60 students. Will you still have 8 students in your class? No, you have 12. So the class now will work for 12.
Yes.
That is what they are talking about here. So resources will now be devoted to large numbers of people than the existing number. If resources are devoted to existing number, it will make them get better. Just imagine class for 15 students, having 8 students there. It's conducive environment, everything is fine.
Yes.
But now you have to have like maybe 15 students or 20 students.
Yes, yes.
So the care is for everybody, not for that existing population anymore. That's why they said here, government might provide better health, government might provide health facility, but it might not be better because it's for the whole population, not for per head. Government will give certain amount of money government will provide certain amount of money, budget for healthcare. But if the population is high, if the population is large, that amount will become little for each per head.
Yes, because the more the population, the less the doesn't stand. Yeah.
The more population, the less allocation for each individual.
Yes, yes.
Is it clear now?
Yes.
Overcrowding. Increases in population will put pressure on housing and social capital and cause traffic congestion. When there is overcrowding, the population is increasing.
Exactly.
There won't be houses available. There will be traffic congestion.
For example, New York.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's clear.
Yes.
Then environmental pressure. More people in the country may result in damage of wildlife, habitat, water shortages, and depletion of non-renewable resources. If population continues to increase, there's possibility that we start taking away green lands so that we can build more houses, we can construct more roads, more offices, habitat will be lost. Is it clear? Yeah. And resources will be used, especially non-renewable resources. Pressure on employment opportunities. If the population starts increasing, job opportunities will fall. Supply of labor would increase more than demand for labor. So if there's an increase in the number of people of working age who lack appropriate skills, the government may have to devote more resources to education and training. It must be remembered, however, that immigration in itself does not cause unemployment. The number of jobs in existence is not fixed. Although immigration will increase the supply of labor, it will also result in an increase in the aggregate demand. So if there's a large number of people in the population that have no skills, government have to devote more resources into training and education. That's an expenditure for government. Mm-hmm. Aside that, a lot of people will come from other countries to seek jobs here. But that they are not the reason why there's no job. The reason why there's no job is that maybe most of the people in the country, most of the citizens lack the skills to fit in that job. Do you understand?
Yes.
Whichever way it is, an increase in population will increase the supply of labor.
But there is no demand that meet up.
That's why I think there's increase in supply of labor. Clear.
Yes.
Then the balance of payment pressures. So more dependence in the population will result in a rise in imports, and some products will need to be diverted from the exports to the home market. So if the population is increasing, domestic market might not be able to produce what is needed for the domestic market. As a result, they might need to do more imports. And more imports would make the balance of payment to go to deficit. Is it clear?
Yes.
So go to ways of reducing the birth rate. A country concerned that its population is growing too rapidly would not want to raise its death rate. It may, however, seek to reduce immigration and try to reduce the country's birth rate. There are a number of ways it could do that. It could do the latter. An effective way is thought to be improvement in education and employment opportunities for women. So here we're talking about ways of reducing the birth rate. One of the ways they talked about is improving education and employment for women. If women are engaged, are busy, they might not have that time to start giving birth to children. Two, educated women tend to be more aware of contraceptives methods, marry later, and are likely to restrict their family size. In order to be able to combine raising children with work, and also because they have higher hopes for their children's future, better information and increased availability of family planning services will make it more likely that households will be able to limit their family size. So because they are educated, they understand what it means to have children that they can take care of. So they feel like, oh, if I have 3 kids, I need to have the financial capability for 6 kids for me to take care of 3 kids very well. So this mentality changes their perception about giving birth to a lot of children. So that is the point they are making here. So they are better informed to understand the consequences of giving birth to more children. I think it's clear. Improvement of healthcare and nutrition reduces infant mortality, and in turn the birth rate. So here they are talking about healthcare. If the healthcare is improving and the nutrition is also improving, a lot of children will not die. Do you understand?
Yes.
So in turn the birth rate, so one reason which may explain a higher number of children in families is the apprehension and concerns over their survival. So if there's improvement in healthcare, there's improvement in nutrition, people feel like, oh, my kids there's a better environment for them. So nobody would bother to say, oh, we don't want to give birth to children, because if we do, the environment is not just ideal for these kids. But if the environment is ideal, then more kids will be given birth to. So another reason for having a large family is the need for support in old age. Another reason, we're talking about reasons now. Yes. Another one is like, oh, when we have a lot of kids, they'll be able to take care of their grandparents, that is when we are not available. So we won't just leave our job to take care of our grandparents and our children. Our children can still take care of our grandparents while we are out working. Do you understand the point they're making there? So setting up pension and sickness insurance schemes will reduce the need for family support. So the family support is one of the reasons why people give birth to large numbers of people or large numbers of children. But if there's government schemes that support the elderly ones, that means government can take care of them. So we don't need to have more children to do that. Yes. That is the point they're making. Yes. Is it clear? Yes. So it can also reduce or stop any financial support it gives to families for each child they have, and instead provide incentive for families who restrict number of children. The most extreme measure is to make it illegal to have children above a specified number, which China was doing. Yes. So all these measures might be difficult to accomplish, but the best measure is for government to make it illegal to give birth to a certain number of children in the country. Is it clear? Yes. So go to the consequences of an aging population. So talking about aging population, that means above 60 years. So I said the number of countries, including Japan, the US, and many of those in the EU, are experiencing an aging population. An aging population is one in which, as its name suggests, the average age is rising. In Japan, for example, the average age of population in 2016 was 43rd, and in 26.3% of the population was aged over 60. An aging population can be caused by a fall in the birth rate, a fall in the death rate, net immigration, or a combination of the three. There are numbers of consequences of an aging population, which includes what? So what increases the aging population? When the birth rate is falling in the country, there's aging population. When the death rate is falling too, there's aging population. And when the net immigration is also increasing, that means a lot of people are leaving the country. Do you understand? So these are the reasons why there's aging population in the country. So what are the consequences? Number one, a rise in the dependency ratio. If the population is aging, they can't work. So that means they have to depend on the agile ones for their livelihood. So a rise in dependency ratio. That means if people are living longer and there are few workers because of net immigration, there'll be a greater proportion of consumers to work. Do you get it? There will be a greater proportion of consumers to workers. That means a lot of people will depend more on those that are working. Do you get it? The second point, a change in the labor force. Older workers may be geographically and occupationally less mobile. They may, however, be more experienced, reliable, and patient. The problem is about labor mobility. Because they are aged, they are aging. They might not have that flexibility to move from one location, geographical location, to another. Or they might not be able to do some jobs. As a result, it affects the working environment. But you won't take it away from them. They still have experience and they can be patient because of their old age. You get the point? A higher demand for healthcare. The elderly place the greatest burden on the country's health service. Because they are old, they will need different healthcare facility and the rest. So government have to spend so much on them. Yes. Greater need for welfare services, such as caring for the elderly at home and in the retirement home. So as much as government has to take care of their health challenges, government has to also give them some welfare packaging, like how to take care of them, home or the elderly homes, those ones, government has different homes to put the old ones that cannot work anymore. These things are expenses for government. Rise in cost of state and private pensions. So because the aging population is increasing, government will pay more pensions. Do you get the point? So what are the ways of coping with an aging population? So what? Yes.
Changing the pattern of demand.
Thank you. Changing the pattern of demand. Yeah, the pattern of demand will change because all people will need demand for where they will need housing.
Yeah.
They don't need employment. They want a place to rest, a place they can call home. Do you understand? So their demand pattern will change. So that means government allocation of resources will change. Yes. That is the point there. Is it clear? Yes. So how do we cope with an aging population? Having a higher proportion of elderly workers will put pressure on government to spend more. If they do so, it will involve an opportunity cost. The money used, for example, may have been spent on education instead. An aging population may also raise the tax burden on workers. There are numbers of ways the government may seek to reduce these effects. So before we go into that, if high proportion of or high percentage of the population are aging, it means government have to spend more on them in social benefits, pensions, and the rest. So this means it involves opportunity cost. Why does it involve opportunity cost? It involves opportunity cost because the money spent on the elderly people might be spent on education, might be spent on infrastructure. That is the point there. So they say there are numbers of ways government can reduce cancer, and also it will increase the tax burden on people because government would have to increase taxes to be able to meet up with their expenditure. Yes. Okay. So what are the ways in which government can reduce the aging population? We said this, okay. One is to raise the retirement age. So one of the ways in which government could increase cope or reduce aging population is to increase the retirement age. So people, maybe in this country, the retirement age is 60. Government can increase it to 64. So that increases the supply of labor from 60 to 64.
Yes.
So that means people will still work till 64 years instead of stopping work at 60 years.
Yes, yes, yes.
Do you get the point there?
Yes,
So that could reduce the pressure on government for additional 4 years. Two. So this will reduce the cost of pensions and increase tax revenue without increasing tax rates. So because people will still be able to work till that age, they will still be paying income tax. So government does not need to increase taxes. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Because the number of people that are working are still high. So government does not have to increase taxes to meet up with the rising government expenditure. Yes. So because now government has increased the retirement age. So increasing the retirement age becomes an opportunity cost for workers because workers will not have to pay more taxes now. So is either government increases taxes or increase retirement age. It's an external benefit. No, it's social benefit, sorry.
Social.
Yeah, social to affect everybody.
Yes.
Do you get it? So government will come up with policies to check. So this is what we talk about allocative efficiency. So do we increase the retirement age or we shift the tax burden on those that are still working? We pay pension. So these are government policies. I think it's clear.
Yes.
In a country in which life expectancy is rising, there is some justification for raising the retirement age. When you are raising the retirement age, especially a country that has a life expectancy that is high, that means their health is fine, so they could still work longer years. So working for a longer period can also increase a worker's lifetime income, and depending on the nature of their work, may keep them physically and mentally healthy for a longer period. So working for a longer period of time is good for the health because it keeps your body and soul together and agile. So the government may also try to cope with the financial burden of an aging population by making it compulsory for workers to save for their retirement. It may try to raise the productivity of workers by means of education and training. So government can also try to cope with aging population by encouraging workers to start keeping money for their retirement age instead of waiting for pension from government. So government can create a scheme that will make you to keep certain percentage of your salary yearly or monthly so that you can come back to it when you are retired. So this reduces the burden on government.
It's not saving.
It's saving, contributing towards your retirement pension scheme. So you are contributing towards your own retirement. So maybe monthly, maybe you earn 5,000 in a month, then you start keeping maybe 300 monthly until you retire. You won't get it until you retire.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this may involve increasing government expenditure, but if successful, may generate more tax revenue. In addition, it may encourage the immigration of younger skilled workers by issuing more work permits. This will reduce the dependency ratio, at least in the short term. So governments also can increase cope with aging population by training workers and training them and adding up to their skills, because this allows them to be able to even when they are old, they can still work in the service sector because they have the skills to do that. So in the short run, it might be expensive for government, but that will save them in the long run to start paying for unemployment or dependency benefits. Do you get it or not? They are still talking about ways in which government can cope. Another way is through education and training. For education and training, government can invest in educating the aging population. So if government educate them and train them, they become flexible to do some jobs. So this means that they can still have a longer period of time working. In the short run, this might be a cost for government, but in the long run, it will help them because those that are old can still work, and that means they will be able to pay taxes. So government will still be able to generate income from them. That is the point. And that will reduce dependency ratio because instead of them to be retired, they are still working. So the number of dependents would reduce. That's the point they make there. Is it clear?
Yes.
So we go to internal migration. He said workers tend to migrate from rural to urban areas in search for better jobs. And higher incomes such as migrants may supply growing industries and result in a better allocation of resources. Their movements may also raise living standards in rural areas if initially they have been underemployment, and if they send back money to their relatives. There may, however, be some harmful effects also if it is the most productive agricultural workers that leave agricultural productivity may fall. There is also no guarantee that enough jobs will be available in urban areas, and the number of external causes, including overcrowding, increased pressure on social capital, and congestion may occur as a result of the rapid expansion of cities. So there's internal migration. That means people are moving from Taruna, Salman, down to Tripoli. If there are jobs available in Tripoli, there's no problem. And because they can have jobs available here, they'll be able to make money here and send back home, which is good for them, for their community. But if coming back down here, there are no jobs available here, it will lead to overcrowding, it will lead to traffic congestion, and government will start thinking about paying other benefits too. That is the point they're making there. Is it clear? So internal migration is good if jobs are available. Did you get the point? But if jobs are not available, it becomes a problem for those living in the urban areas. Do you get it?
Yes.
So here, government could try to, instead of allowing them to come down here, government could set up businesses over there to reduce overcrowding here. I think it's clear.
Yes.
So the effects of net emigration. There are a number of possible economic effects on net emigration. These are influenced by the size of and the nature of the emigration. Some of these include: one, the size of the working population is likely to be reduced. Most immigrants tend to be of working age. So when people leave the country, what are the factors that influence the net emigration? One, it affects the working population because people don't leave a country. People don't emigrate because they want to have pleasure. They are emigrating to have a better working life. So that means the working population of that country will be reducing because they are going out of the country. The remaining labor force will have greater burden of dependency. So the rest of the population would have to take care of those that are depending on them because large numbers of people are leaving. So they have dependents too. So their dependents will start depending on the ones that are left behind. Do you get it? No. Large numbers of people are emigrating. You emigrated, I emigrated. We have dependents. You have dependents, I have dependents. Some people depend on me, some people depend on you. But because you left, they have to depend on those that are available. Pending the time, you'll be fine. Because I left, they have to depend on those that are available. So the burden of dependency goes back to those that are left behind. Clear?
Yes.
The third point, the average age of labor force will increase. This may make it less mobile. So the labor force age will increase because we have less workers available. Do you understand? Yes. There will be less workers available. So the labor age would increase because normally they are supposed to spread across the large numbers. But now numbers are leaving, people are leaving. So the average age will rise. Do you get it? Yes. Average should reduce. But if part of the average are leaving, the average would increase because if you have to divide, okay, let's say 20 divided by 5 will give 4. But now 20 divided by 2 would give what? Would give 10. Do you understand the point here? So the average age of labor force will increase because the working age are leaving. The gender distribution of the population may be affected. In the case of some countries, more men emigrate than women. So it will also affect the gender distribution because maybe more men would have left than women. So it will affect. There will be a shortage of skilled workers. For example, doctors will emigrate in search of higher pay and better working conditions. For example, in Nigeria, they said a lot of Nigerian doctors have left. So large numbers of Nigerian doctors are in America. Large numbers of Nigerian teachers are in UK. So Nigeria starts losing skilled workers to European countries and Western world, foreign countries. That is the point. Is it clear?
Yes.
And the country will live, the country they live will experience what we call a brain drain. Do you understand? It will be brain drain here because a lot of skilled workers have left. It becomes a brain gain for those countries that they went to.
Yes.
Do you understand the difference between brain drain and brain drain?
Brain drain and brain drain.
Clear, right? There will be underutilization of resources. The country may become underpopulated. Yes, because a lot of people are leaving. So there will be underutilization of resources. Underpopulation. Those who emigrate may send money home to help their relatives. This money is called workers' remittances. But because they left, they will be sending home money. They will be remitting home. They will be remitting money back home.
Yes.
That's what we call workers' remittance, which is good though. Okay. Okay, are you there?
Yeah.
I say in a country, more boys are born than girls, and yet there are more women than men in the population. How can this be explained?
There are more boys than girls, but there are more women than men in the population. How can this be explained?
Women living longer than men, yes. Question 2D, right? Question 2. Which of the following is most likely to cause a rise in the average age of the country's population? Most likely to cause a rise in the average age. A rise in death rate and birth rate? No.
B.
A fall in the death rate and a rise in the birth rate too. B. Question 3. What is meant by the gender distribution of the population?
A.
The proportion of females and males in the population, the proportion of people over it, okay, no females and males in the population. Okay, the proportion of females and males in the population. A. Question 3A. Question 4. Why may a government want to reduce the growth of its population?
Juice.
Yes.
C.
There are worries about the risk of famine. Yes, that's it. So that ends population.
Yes.
Wow, a long topic, man.